The fastest way to ruin smart tech is to make daily life feel like tech support. One more app, one more cable, one more thing that looks impressive for 2 days and then quietly turns into background clutter. Welcome to CircuitPeek. Quick upgrades, real outcomes. This list goes the other direction. Every product here turns a small hassle into a cleaner win. Whether that hassle lives in your TV setup, your kitchen, your network, your front door, your travel routine, or the first thing you touch in the morning. Peek into what's next. That sounds simple, yet the first win starts with the screen people touch every day. Roku Streaming Stick HD 2025 turns a cluttered streaming setup into a cleaner, faster routine right away. The small hassle here is familiar. Extra hardware around the TV, slower menu flow, too much visual mess, and a setup that feels heavier than the job demands. This product fixes that by staying compact, keeping the footprint low, and moving the focus back to fast access instead of hardware presence. The question in your head right now is whether simple feels too basic for a smart tech list. That is exactly why it works. Simple wins first. When the path from sitting down to pressing play gets shorter, the result feels better every day, not just during setup. Govee Table Lamp 2 Pro X Sound by JBL turns desk clutter into one smarter control point for light, sound, and atmosphere. A lot of room setups lose momentum because one small job gets assigned to 3 separate items, and the whole surface ends up feeling busy before the room even feels finished. This product solves that with app-driven lighting, scene variety, portable use, and built-in sound in one object that still looks intentional on camera. What you want to know before you trust this is whether it actually helps the room or just adds flash. The result is stronger because it reduces sprawl. One device handles mood, casual listening, and visual lift in a way that feels cleaner instead of louder. MCGOR 10-inch under-cabinet lighting. 2-pack rechargeable motion sensor light indoor. Turns a tiny but repeated annoyance into a real daily win. Dark shelves, dim counters, and stair edges slow movement, break rhythm, and force a manual fix for something that should already feel handled. This product removes that interruption through motion response, rechargeable power, brightness control, and quick magnetic placement. Here's what's happening. A forgotten corner of the house stops demanding attention and starts working with your movement instead. That is the kind of small hassle that disappears quietly. And that quiet improvement is exactly why products like this stay useful long after the first install. PETLIBRO RFID. Automatic cat feeder turns feeding chaos into a more controlled, lower friction routine. The hassle here is not just put food in bowl. It is food stealing, special diets, timing friction, and the repeated stop and correct cycle that shows up in multi-pet homes. This feeder solves that by matching meals to the right pet through RFID access and app-managed feeding control, which means the routine stops depending on constant human intervention. The thing you're thinking about first is whether the smart part lines up with a real household problem. It does. The outcome is calmer feeding, cleaner portions, and less traffic cop energy at one of the most repeated moments in the day. Oakley Meta HSTN turns a wearable tech hesitation into a stronger, hands-free win. A lot of smart wearables stumble because they look like tech first and real-life gear second, which creates friction before the value even gets a chance to show up. This product flips that tension by wrapping capture and audio utility into premium eyewear that still reads like something a person would actually wear outside a demo clip. The make-or-break detail you're focused on is whether it earns space in normal life. That is the real shift. When audio and capture live closer to your line of sight and your hands stay free, the result feels less like novelty and more like smoother everyday flow. ecobee Smart Thermostat Essential turns home temperature from a repeated correction into a steadier background system. The hassle is easy to recognize. Rooms drift, schedules miss the mark, and the house ends up one step behind the day. This thermostat solves that through app control, automated scheduling, and a setup that makes smart climate control feel more reachable instead of overly complicated. Here's the exact concern most people have at this point: whether a thermostat segment feels too utility-heavy inside a gadget list. That is why it belongs here. A smoother home routine is one of the clearest smart tech wins because the product fades into the background while the comfort stays present. Birdfy 2 Smart Bird Feeder with Camera turns passive backyard decoration into a more active, rewarding experience. The small hassle here is not a failure state. It is missed moments. Standard feeders give you a nice setup, but the interesting part comes and goes without you seeing much of it. Birdfy changes that with camera views, live access, AI bird identification, and a stronger sense that the feeder is doing more than sitting there. What you're evaluating right now is whether that sounds too niche for a broad list. The reason it still works is repeat engagement. Once the feeder starts returning footage, movement, and recognition instead of just seed use, the backyard becomes a place you check with more purpose. The list has already done something important. It started with easy visual cleanup, moved into room atmosphere, solved dark corner friction, improved pet feeding, raised the ceiling with a wearable, grounded the whole thing with climate control, and then widened the idea of smart through outdoor viewing. That progression matters because small hassles live in different places, yet the payoff stays the same when the product earns a permanent role. Which one feels closest to your setup so far? The second half pushes deeper into backbone tech, everyday carry, access control, translation, outdoor lighting, and a final product that closes the loop on daily routine. Most people stop there, but the bigger shift starts once the setup underneath everything gets stronger. GL.iNet GL-BE6500 Flint 3E Wi-Fi 7 router turns network drag into a stronger smart home backbone. One of the biggest hidden hassles in connected living is this. The gadgets look fine, but the foundation under them feels crowded, slow, or one generation behind. That friction spreads across streaming, work, home office flow, and every connected device that depends on stable throughput. This router solves that by strengthening the backbone rather than decorating the edges. The question in your head right now is whether router upgrades feel too technical for most viewers. The answer lands in routine. When the backbone improves, the rest of the setup stops fighting for position, and the whole environment feels more composed. Samsung Galaxy Watch 8 40mm turns repeated phone grabs into a tighter wrist-based routine. The small hassle here is not one huge problem. It is all the little checks stacked together. Sleep updates, quick navigation looks, glanceable activity data, timing cues, and short interactions that keep pulling attention back to a larger screen. This watch solves that by putting those moments closer to the body and reducing the number of times your routine breaks for a full device pull. The thing you're thinking about first is whether another screen adds friction instead of removing it. That depends on fit, and that fit improves when the watch becomes a fast checkpoint instead of a mini phone on the wrist. Philips Wi-Fi Door Lock. Wi-Fi Smart Lock, keyless entry deadbolt for front door, turns front door interruptions into a more deliberate entry routine. The hassle shows up in busy exits, guest access, forgotten lock checks, key searching, and those repeated moments where the door feels disconnected from the rest of the setup. This product solves that through fingerprint entry, passcodes, app access, and remote visibility that puts multiple routines under one control point. What happens next is clarity. Different people move through the same entry in different ways, and the result feels cleaner when one system handles those paths without extra fumbling. Anker Zolo Power Bank turns charging panic into a calmer, everyday backup plan. The hassle here hits fast. Your battery drops, your day still has hours left, and the cable situation falls apart at the exact wrong moment. This product solves that with portable charging and built-in cable convenience, which removes two common failure points from the same problem. Here's the mechanism. Power stays closer, the cable stays attached, and the response feels immediate instead of scrambled. That is why this product sits so well late in the list. It is familiar, highly visual, and easy to understand. Yet the win lands hard because readiness beats novelty when the day gets longer than expected. Govee Star Projector Lights turns flat room energy into a more intentional environment. The hassle is subtle but real. Some rooms never quite switch modes. They stay bright when the space should wind down, or they stay plain when the room needs more atmosphere for gaming, relaxing, or an evening reset. This product solves that with app control, scene variety, and room scale projection that changes the feel of the space without turning setup into a project. The thing you're thinking about first is whether that feels like decoration more than utility. The outcome answers that. When the room starts helping the mood instead of ignoring it, the routine around that room gets easier to shape on purpose. Timekettle W4 Pro AI Interpreter Earbuds turns language friction into smoother conversation flow. The hassle here is not just translation itself. It is the break in rhythm that shows up when every exchange depends on pulling out a phone, passing it around, stopping the moment, and rebuilding momentum again. These earbuds solve that by moving translation support closer to the interaction and keeping the exchange more fluid. What you want to know before you trust this is whether dedicated hardware earns its place over a phone app. That is where flow becomes the real value. When conversation keeps moving with fewer pauses and less handoff friction, the product feels more practical and less like a futuristic experiment. Govee Outdoor Lamppost Lights turns overlooked exterior space into a stronger nighttime environment. The hassle outside is easy to miss until it repeats. Lighting feels plain, visibility feels underwhelming, and the exterior never matches the intention already built indoors. This product solves that with app-driven control, multi-zone lighting effects, and a design that pushes outdoor use beyond bare minimum function. The exact concern at this point is whether outdoor smart lighting feels too seasonal or too decorative. The answer is broader than that. Once the entry path, curb feel, and evening atmosphere all improve from one install, the outside of the home starts participating in the same smart system logic as the inside. Amazon Echo Spot turns scattered bedside steps into a more compact morning and night routine. After a list full of lighting, streaming, climate, entry, networking, wearables, charging, and translation, the final small hassle to solve is the one closest to the start of the day. Too many separate little checks. This product solves that by bringing alarm, voice control, and quick display utility into one bedside point that is easy to understand and easy to picture in real use. That is why it closes the video well. The setup stops feeling like random smart objects and starts feeling like a connected pattern, where even the first glance of the day feels more organized. That is the whole pattern of this list. Not bigger hype, not louder features, just smarter products turning repeated little hassles into practical wins. Some of these fit almost any setup. Some fit specific routines like pet care, heavier networking, outdoor control, travel, or translation. Either way, the value gets easier to trust when the result shows up every day. If one of these stood out, drop a comment, hit like, and subscribe. The links below support the channel through qualifying purchases. Which products surprised you most, and why? Then check the links in the description if you want to look any of these up. Stop doing the things the hard way. Peek into what's next. Want to see more? Check out the video on the left, or check out the playlist on the right.